All right. Well, I guess we'll get started. We're going to start with a little quiz. Not sure who all is on right now, but I'll give you guys all a minute to look over the quiz. Let any last minute guests join, and then we can kind of go over the quiz a little bit and get started with the presentation. All right, do you want to click on the next slide and we can get started? All right, so the answers to the quiz are right here. For the first question, you must buy a car from a dealership. That is going to be false. There are many different you can buy cars from. You can buy them from individuals, dealers. Honestly, anyone who's willing to sell you a car is allowed to. You're not strictly restricted to just buying from dealerships. Cars almost always depreciate in value. That is going to be true. We'll go into this a little bit more, but cars are not usually seen as a great investment per se. They're kind of seen if you're looking to make money off it. It's something that a lot of times it loses its value almost immediately after driving off the lot. Next question. When is it best to inform the dealership that you have a down payment? At the beginning of the car buying process, during the car buying process, or at the end? The answer to this one is at the end of the car buying process. You don't want to let the salesperson really know your kind of goals and intentions with paying, just because they obviously, as a salesperson, want to make the best deal for them, and you as a buyer want the best deal for you. So it's kind of best to leave the payment talks until the end of the car buying process. Next question. Approximately what percent of your take-home pay should be spent on car expenses? We like to say around 15% of your take-home pay should be on car expenses, and that also includes car payments, gas, insurance, and all other maintenance fees that go along with that. And then the final question, John is applying to be pre-approved for a car loan. Which of the following will his loan approval most likely be dependent on? His income, his age, his credit score, or both A and C? And as you can see, the answer is A and C. The pre-approval process, which we will talk about a little bit more as well, is very dependent on your income and your credit score. Your age is not really of that much importance.
All right, and this workshop is brought to you by the Financial Wellness Center. And before we get into the bulk of this workshop, we have a few slides that just cover the Financial Wellness Center and the services that we offer. So here at the Financial Wellness Center, our mission is to financially empower students with the knowledge needed to make sound financial decisions during and after college. And our focus areas, or the big five as we call them, are earning, spending, borrowing, protecting, and saving and investing. And so because this is a car buying workshop, we will be focusing on the saving, spending, and borrowing pillars of the big five. But there are resources covering the other four on our website at financialwellness.uoregon.edu, where you can find our previously recorded workshops. And we are also going to be uploading this workshop onto our website as well. And so as far as how we reach you as students, we provide financial education workshops like this one. The nice thing is that if you're unable to make the live session, like I said, all of our workshops are recorded and posted to our website. Once again, that is financialwellness.uoregon.edu. And we also offer one-on-one peer financial coaching appointments to give students the opportunity to ask any questions or ask for clarification on whatever specific financial topics they might be curious about. And so you can go ahead and make an appointment at our website if that's something you're interested in. And so that brings us to today's workshop, which is Car Buying 101, the basics of purchasing a car, hosted by myself, Lucas Murphy. I'm a peer financial coach, and I'm here with Donovan Jones, who is a peer financial coach as well. And so for today's agenda, we're going to start with determining your budget and figuring out how much you can afford on a car. We'll then get into how to research and find the right car for your needs. And then we'll follow that with determining which type of financing is best for you. And then we'll wrap up with some negotiation tips for when you're at the dealership. And finally, we'll conclude with some key takeaways that you can leave with afterwards. And so we'll start with what you should do before even stepping foot onto a dealership lot. So first is your budget. And to go about figuring out your budget, a general rule of thumb is to spend no more than 15% of your after-tax income on your total transportation expense. And that total transportation expense includes your monthly car payment, insurance, gas, and any maintenance expenses that go along with it. And so from there, allocating roughly 10% of your after-tax income to your monthly car payment is a pretty good starting point. So here we have an example of someone who earns $32,750 annually after taxes. So dividing that by 12 will get you their monthly income, which is going to be $2,729. And so 10% of that monthly after-tax income is $272.92. And so that's going to be your estimate for what your monthly car payment should be. And then so 15% of that monthly income is going to be $409. And so that should ideally be the upper limit for your monthly total transportation costs. And so after you determine your budget comes finding the right car. When determining what car is best for your situation, you should start with your needs in a car, and that would include the model, seating, performance, and reliability. These are the more important factors that go into deciding on a car. And after you've considered your wants, after you've considered your needs, you can then consider your wants, which would include convenience, certain assistive devices, any entertainment features, comfortability, appearance, resale value, etc. And from there, you should consider the trade-offs between your needs and your wants, as well as the different prices among various options. So what you should think about is what wants are you willing to sacrifice for the needs, which are the more important things you need in the car.
Yeah, so there are many different ways to go about finding car. There are a lot of great websites, but 3 websites that we kind of like to think about are Edmunds, Car Gurus, and Kelley Blue Book are great places to start. There's also Consumer Reports and Carfax, but there's just an endless number of websites that are great databases, and they allow people to show listings. And then you can filter out different cars through your wants and needs, and you can filter it through make, model, miles, price, everything you could possibly think about in a vehicle. You can find it on some of these websites. So on the next slide, we'll actually show you what Car Gurus kind of looks like when you're looking in for the initial search on a website like Car Gurus. As you can see, I have it set for Honda Accord, near Eugene, and you can choose if you want a used car, a new car, certified pre-owned, or even buy a private seller as well. New cars versus used cars. New cars are usually more expensive, but at the same time, you have the certainty regarding the car history. You can also get discounts on showroom models depending on the timing of the year. I know towards the end of the year, the newer models will roll in, and they need to try to get the older models off the lot. So consider that when purchasing a new car. And if you want to maybe wait till the end of the year and buy that 2020 model instead of the 2021, it's a good choice. In terms of used cars, there's cheaper cars. There's probably more variants of the type of car you can get because you never know what people might be selling at any given time. But you want to know the condition of the car. You get assessed by a mechanic before you purchase the vehicle, and then you want to make sure you get a report of all the information on the car, whether it be owners, mileage, different accidents, mechanical problems, and more. And we'll talk about it a little bit more later in the presentation as well.
And here we just have a few points on the current market for automobiles. So given the current state of economy, it's not the best economy we've seen in recent years. Supply and demand during the pandemic has actually increased the price of used cars. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're doing your search. Another thing is new cars traditionally lose 20 to 25% of their value after the first year. That is that depreciation that Donovan had mentioned earlier. While with used cars, someone else has already taken on that depreciation. Additionally, with new cars, you often have a warranty. While with used cars, there is often no warranty or a limited warranty with used vehicles, but there are options to purchase warranties for a used car from a third party, like a dealership, for example. And sometimes those might be a better value than the manufacturer's warranty. And so another important decision is whether you should lease or buy a car. So leasing is essentially a long-term rental of a vehicle. And with leasing, you're going to make monthly payments for a certain amount of time or a certain amount of miles. So some of the characteristics of leasing a car would include a lower monthly payment for a shorter fixed period, maybe 36 months, for example. However, at the end of the lease, you do not own the car unless you do elect to purchase the car at the end of the lease. And leases are often associated with higher upfront costs than purchasing a car. And while with buying a car, even if you do take out a loan and are on a payment plan, each payment you make is going to be building more equity on that car. And so eventually you will pay it off and you will fully own that car and not owe anymore. And so some of the pros associated with leasing is that it is an affordable way to get a new car if you need it for work. For example, if you're a real estate agent or a contractor, or if it's just something you like always having a relatively new car, leasing might be an option for you. The cons of leasing, however, are that you are paying for and maintaining a car that you will likely never own, again, unless you decide to purchase the vehicle at the end of the lease. Additionally, you will often face a mileage limit, and you will be faced with additional charges for any damages that the car incurs. And so for more about deciding on whether you should lease or buy a car, you can check out the Should I Lease or Purchase an Auto calculator on smartaboutmoney.org. So another important aspect of the car buying process is understanding your credit score, because it will affect the interest rates you're offered on a car loan. And so you can check your credit scores for free on either annualcreditreport.com, which can be seen here on the left, or Credit Karma. And if you want to learn more about what factors impact your credit scores, I would highly recommend checking out our recorded credit building workshops on our website. That's at financialwellness.uoregon.edu. There's a lot of great information there. And so as far as what to expect with your credit score, here we have the 5 different classes of credit rating, starting with exceptional and going down all the way to very poor. So if you have an exceptional credit score, that's going to be between 800 and 850. You're going to be receiving the best interest rates from lenders. If your score is in the very good class, which is between 740 and 800, you will likely be able to receive competitive interest rates, which is still really good. And if you have a good score, which is between 670 and 740, you are considered a low risk consumer and you're still going to receive pretty good interest rates for a loan. If your score is fair, which is between 580 and 670, 580 and 670, you still might be able to get approved for a loan, but you're going to be faced with much higher interest rates than if you had a higher credit score. And finally, if you are in the very poor class, which is anything below 580, there is a good chance that you won't actually be approved for a loan. And if you are approved, you're going to be facing very high interest rates, which can make the whole thing a lot more unaffordable. So for anyone with a very poor credit score, it might be a better idea to focus on building up that credit score before you go ahead and take out a loan and hope to purchase a car. And again, more information on credit scores and how you can build those up is available in our pre-recorded workshop on our website. And so one more thing to consider about when taking a loan is getting pre-approved for a loan from your bank rather than seeking out a loan through or financing through the car dealership themselves. And so the reason for this is that your bank will oftentimes offer you much better rates than a dealership will. And this way you can avoid the typically more expensive rates and financing at the dealership. In addition, it's just one less thing you have to worry about at the dealership, which, as a lot of people know, it's not the best place to be sometimes. And some factors that will likely be considered in the pre-approval process are your income, your debts, your job history, your place of residency for the past 5 years. They might require a reference, and in some situations, they might recommend a cosigner, like a parent or family member. But that's all very situational. And so now we're going to get into some considerations for when you're actually at the dealership. So one thing to consider is avoiding dealer traps, which are basically techniques that dealers use to get more money out of your pocket. And so one major thing to keep in mind is to purchase a car based on the price, the total price of the car, not the monthly payment. The reason for this is that dealers can play around with the payment terms until they can offer you something that may seem affordable, but in reality, it has a very high total price or a very long payment period, for example. So while that monthly expense might seem low, you might be making it for several more months. So that's the reason why you should base your decision based on the price of the car rather than the payment. Another thing is to avoid leading questions like, how much are you thinking about spending per month? This goes hand in hand with that last point about dealers being able to manipulate payment plans to make them seem more appealing to the buyer. And so to avoid this, you can use online pricing guides like Edmunds or Kelley Blue Book so that you can know what a car is actually worth before a dealer may try and paint a different picture at the dealership. And finally, remember that if the deal does not fit in your budget, just walk away. There are plenty of other cars out there that will fit in your budget. So here we have a few points on how dealers make money. So interestingly enough, dealers don't actually make the majority of their profits from the sale of the car itself, but rather from selling you financing plans and additional extra bonuses that they may try to push during the process. And so some of those extra bonuses include gap insurance, extended warranties, interior conditioners, and documentation fees. So the takeaway here is just to keep in mind that when a dealer is trying to push these extras on you, they are likely just trying to increase their profits rather than providing more value. And so now Donovan is going to go over purchasing a vehicle from a private seller, which can often be a viable alternative to a dealership.
Yes, definitely. So as we talk about, like, kind of going into the dealership, it's kind of a different concept when you go and buy from a private seller, because you're only dealing with someone who might not be a salesperson per se, and they might just need to get rid of a car. So private sellers may be selling cars for various reasons. So getting the Carfax, maintenance records, and any other information is extremely important. Without knowing what the seller is really selling the vehicle for, before you even go into looking at the car, you probably want to get the vehicle identification number, which a lot of times will be posted on any of the websites that you're viewing the vehicles from. And you can actually get a Carfax report from yourself. And so some things to be wary of there are miles, many owners. Figuring that Carfax out is one great step in the right direction to finding a used car from a private seller that works for you. And beware of sellers trying to sell you a car, but withholding key information. There are instances of people trying to scam buyers out of cars that may have damaged parts, faulty titles, which is means it might be salvage and not like the original make and body of the car. And there might be parts that have been fixed and that you really don't know the history of. So knowing the information is extremely important. Figuring out the financials. As going to a private party, if you're going to a private seller, if you're getting a loan, you'll need to work that out with a third party, because the seller is not a dealership and they can't really work out a loan for you. They're going to want money, and then they're not going to want to take payments from a stranger who's a buyer as well. So go to your local credit union, go to your local bank, and get a pre-approved loan like we were talking about a little bit earlier in the presentation, so that you know how much you're paying and you don't have to go through the seller, and you don't have to pull it out in cash by yourself either. And then another important thing is get a pre-sale inspection by a mechanic before you purchase a car. You can call pretty much any mechanic in your area, and they will do a pre-sale inspection. And they're usually not extremely pricey, but they can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road. I know recently I actually bought a used car from a private seller, and we took it to the mechanic, and before they said, oh, you're going to need a new battery soon and you're going to need new wheels soon. And these are two things that are not the end of the world when it comes to a vehicle, because that every vehicle needs these new parts at a given point in time. So we use that as a negotiation tactic. So if there are any issues with the car like that you can fix yourself, or take it to a mechanic for not a huge sum of money, use this as a negotiation tactic and kind of ask them to knock off the price of what that may cost you a little bit. If it's $1,000, knock off the price by $1,000. And that's a great way to save yourself a little bit of money. Here's our scenario after going through all of the steps into buying a car. Meet Kim, a recent college graduate. Kim received $3,000 in graduation gifts and recently accepted a new job offer. Kim's next goal is to buy a new car. So, this is going to be Kim's car buying process. Her first step is going to be figuring out what she wants to pay. Kim decided that she'll put that $3,000 towards the car, plus $250 a month for all car expenses. She figured this out by figuring out how much she was going to be paid, and she figured out that that'll be around 10 to 15% of her after-tax income. So she wants to put $250 a month plus that $3,000 for a down payment. Her next step is to figure out what car she wants and researching it. After searching on Car Gurus, Kim found a certified pre-owned 2016 Toyota Camry at a dealership near her. She decided this fit into her needs and wants perfectly. It's a modern car that is a couple years old, so she can get a much better deal on it. And since it's a certified pre-owned, she can also know what she's getting herself into. There's no real issues or anything when actually buying the car. So next, Kim went for a pre-approval. Instead of financing from the dealership, Kim went to her local credit union and was given a great rate on the car instead of getting having to negotiate it out with the dealership for a different rate. And then at the dealership, Kim took the car for a test drive and decided it was the car she wanted and drove it off the lot.
Right. And so as we wrap things up here, we just have a few key takeaways that hopefully you can leave with. So first, remember to start off with determining your budget and what you can afford, along with your needs and wants when beginning the car buying process. So that should be done first. Also remember to do extensive research before going to a dealership so that you can know what to expect once you're there in terms of the value of a car. Remember to not fall in love with any one particular car and to base your purchase decision on the total price of the vehicle rather than the monthly payment of the vehicle. And remember to consider potential dealer traps and try to avoid them using those tips that we talked about earlier. And finally, don't be afraid to walk away. Buying a car is one of the biggest purchases you're going to make in your lifetime besides buying a home. So it should not be an impulsive decision or rushed. It should be a very well-informed decision after a lot of research. And so that brings us to the end of this workshop. So remember, you can visit our website to schedule a one-on-one appointment with a peer financial coach if you have any specific questions. There's also our pre-recorded workshops available on our website as well. And so finally, just remember to stay connected with us on Twitter and Instagram at UOFinWellness. And you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at UO Financial Wellness. So thanks everyone. If there's any questions, me and Donovan can stick around and try and field those. But if not, thank you guys all for attending.